The alarm clock didn't ring. It didn't have to. For 20 years, Eleanor's internal clock had woken her at exactly 5:30 a.m. It was a rhythm etched into her bones, a silent command that signaled the start of another day of service. The house in the suburbs of Seattle was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. Eleanor swung her legs out of bed, her feet finding the cold hardwood floor. Beside her, Mark was sound asleep. He was snoring softly, his back turned to her. He hadn't faced her while sleeping in 3 years. Eleanor walked to the bathroom. She looked in the mirror. Who was looking back? The blue eyes were the same, but the spark was dim. There were lines around her mouth, not laugh lines, but worry lines. Lines etched by thousands of unasked questions like, did you finish your homework? Do you have your lunch? Is the presentation ready, Mr. Henderson? She was 45 years old, and she felt like a ghost in her own life. Downstairs, the routine began. The coffee maker hissed, the bacon sizzled, the smell of pancakes filled the kitchen. This was the scent of love, she used to think. Now, it just smelled like expectation. At 6:30 a.m., the thundering of footsteps began. Her son, Jake, 17 and perpetually in a rush, flew down the stairs. "Mom, where's my jersey? I need it for practice," he shouted, not even looking at her. "It's in the dryer, Jake, folded," Eleanor said softly. He grabbed a piece of bacon. "Thanks." He didn't look up from his phone. Then came Sarah, 15. She was FaceTiming a friend. She walked past Eleanor, grabbed a travel mug of coffee Eleanor had prepared, and walked out the door. "Bye, Mom," she mumbled, the door slamming shut before Eleanor could say, "Have a good day, sweetie." Finally, Mark came down. He was adjusting his tie. "Elle, did you pick up the dry cleaning?" he asked, eyes on his iPad. "Yes, Mark. It's hanging in the closet, blue suit, crisp shirt." "Great, I'm late. Don't wait up for dinner. Big meeting." He pecked the air near her cheek, missed her skin entirely, and left. The silence returned. The kitchen was a mess of crumbs and dirty pans. Eleanor stood there, holding her own mug of lukewarm coffee. She had successfully launched her family into the world for another day, and not one of them had looked her in the eye. The commute to the city was gray. Rain lashed against the windshield of her 10-year-old sedan. Eleanor worked as an executive assistant at a marketing firm. It was a fancy title for person who does everything. She arrived at her desk at 8:45 a.m. Her boss, Mr. Henderson, was already yelling on the phone in his glass office. Eleanor sat down. On her desk was a pile of files. A sticky note on top read, "Need these summarized by noon. H." "Morning, Eleanor," chirped Jessica. Jessica was 24, bright, ambitious, and currently taking credit for a project Eleanor had spent 3 weeks researching. "Morning, Jessica," Eleanor replied, forcing a smile. "Oh, hey, did you bring those cookies you make, the oatmeal ones?" "Not today, sorry." Jessica pouted. "Bummer. You're practically the office mom, you know. We rely on your snacks." Office mom. The word stung. She wasn't a colleague. She was the office appliance that dispensed comforts and organization. At 11 a.m., the pivotal moment happened. Mr. Henderson's door was slightly ajar. Eleanor approached to hand him the summaries. She paused when she heard her name. "What about Eleanor?" It was Jessica's voice. "What about her?" Mr. Henderson grunted. "She's a lifer. She's not going anywhere." "But shouldn't we give her a raise? She did the back end of the Harrison account." Mr. Henderson laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. "Jessica, you don't buy new tires for a car you're going to drive into the ground. Eleanor she's furniture. Reliable, sturdy, invisible. She doesn't need a raise. She needs to feel useful. That's her currency. Let her stay where she is." Eleanor stood frozen. The file folder trembled in her hands. Furniture. Drive into the ground. She didn't storm in. She didn't cry. She quietly walked back to her desk, placed the files down, and sat. A strange coldness washed over her. It wasn't sadness. It was the icy clarity of a winter morning. 2 weeks later, it was Eleanor's birthday. She woke up at 5:30 a.m. She waited. Mark was sleeping. No happy birthday. She went downstairs. She made the coffee. She made the pancakes. Jake ran down. "Mom, I need $20 for lunch." Sarah ran down. "Mom, can you drive me to the mall later?" Mark came down. "Elle, the dry cleaning?" No one remembered. Not the husband of 20 years, not the children she birthed. She drove to work. "Happy birthday to me," she whispered to the rearview mirror. At work, there was a cake in the break room. Her heart leaped. She walked in. "Happy birthday, Kevin," everyone shouted. It was the IT guy's birthday. Jessica handed Eleanor a plastic knife. "Elle, can you cut the cake? You do it so perfectly." Eleanor cut the cake. She served everyone. She wiped the crumbs. She went back to her desk, opened her email, and typed a letter. She didn't send it. She just saved it to drafts. Subject: resignation. That evening, she arrived home. The house was dark. Maybe a surprise party. She opened the door. Silence. On the counter, a note from Mark. Went to dinner with the clients. Pizza money on the fridge for the kids. Upstairs, Jake was gaming with headphones on. Sarah was out. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the $20 bill Mark had left for pizza. She stood up. She didn't order pizza. She walked upstairs to her bedroom. She pulled a suitcase from the back of the closet. She didn't pack everything, just the essentials: jeans, sweaters, a few books, her passport, and a photo of her parents, who had passed away years ago, the last people who had looked at her with genuine adoration. She wrote a note, not a long one. She placed it on Mark's pillow. "I am not furniture. I am not an appliance. I am Eleanor, and I am tired." She walked out to her car. She backed out of the driveway. For the first time in 20 years, she didn't know where she was going, and it was the most beautiful feeling in the world. Eleanor drove for 3 hours until she reached the coast. She found a small, slightly run-down motel called the Sea Breeze. She checked in. The room smelled of salt and old pine. She sat on the bed. She checked her phone. 10:30 p.m. 3 missed calls from Mark. 2 texts from Sarah. "Mom, where is dinner?" 1 text from Jake. "Mom?" She turned the phone off. She slept for 12 hours. The next morning, she woke up at 9 a.m. The sun was streaming through the window. Panic set in instantly. The lunches, the coffee, the meeting. Then she remembered. She wasn't there. She walked to the beach. The wind whipped her hair she usually kept in a tight, sensible bun. She let it down. It was graying, but thick. She found a small cafe. She ordered coffee and a scone. "Rough morning?" the waitress asked kindly. "No," Eleanor smiled, and it reached her eyes. "The best morning of my life." Back at the house, chaos reigned. Mark had woken up at 7 a.m., angry that the alarm hadn't gone off. Elle? He found the empty side of the bed. He found the note. He read it 3 times. "I am not furniture." "Drama," he muttered. "She'll be back by dinner." But dinner came, and Eleanor didn't. The laundry piled up. The dishes rotted in the sink. "Dad, I have no clean socks," Jake yelled on day 3. "Figure it out," Mark snapped, wrestling with the coffee machine he had never bothered to learn how to use. A week passed. Eleanor was still at the coast. She had rented a small cabin now, cheaper than the motel. She bought a sketchbook. She used to draw, years ago. She drew the ocean. She drew the seagulls. She met a woman named Clara, an artist in her 60s, who owned a pottery studio nearby. "You have good hands," Clara told her one afternoon, as Eleanor tried the wheel. "Strong hands, hands that have carried a lot." "Too much," Eleanor said. "Well, now they can carry clay. Create something for yourself, Eleanor." Back in the city, Mr. Henderson was losing his mind. "Where is the Harrison file? Why isn't the calendar updated?" he screamed. Jessica was in tears. "I don't know where she kept them. She did everything." "Call her." It goes to voicemail. Mark was no longer annoyed, he was scared. The house was a disaster, but more than that, the silence was deafening. He realized he didn't miss the cooking or the cleaning. He missed the presence. He missed the warmth that he had treated like air conditioning, only noticing it when it was gone. 2 weeks later, Eleanor turned her phone on. 150 messages. She scrolled past the angry ones. She stopped at a voicemail from Mark. It sounded different. "Elle, I can't find the insurance papers, but mostly I can't find you. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was your birthday. I forgot. I forgot a lot of things. Please call." She didn't call. She needed money. She went to a local bookstore that was hiring. "I haven't worked retail in 20 years, she told the owner, a gentle man named Arthur. "You have kind eyes," Arthur said, "and you organize the shelves while you browse. You're hired." For the next month, Eleanor lived a simple life. She worked at the bookstore. She made pottery with Clara. She walked on the beach. She lost weight. Her skin, usually pale from office lights, turned golden from the sun. She bought a dress, a bright yellow sundress. She had never worn yellow. Mark said it was too loud. She looked in the mirror. "Hello, Eleanor," she said. It had been 6 weeks. Eleanor decided it was time to go back. Not to stay, but to settle things. She drove back to the suburbs. She pulled into the driveway. The lawn was overgrown. She walked to the door. Her key still worked. She opened the door. The house smelled of stale pizza and anxiety. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. He looked 10 years older. Jake and Sarah were sitting on the couch, silent, no phones. They looked up when she entered. They didn't recognize her at first. Who was this woman in a yellow dress, with wind-blown hair and glowing skin? "Mom?" Sarah whispered. Eleanor stood in the entryway. She didn't rush to hug them. She didn't start cleaning the pile of dishes. "Hello," she said calmly. Mark stood up, knocking his chair over. "Elle, oh my God." He rushed to her, but stopped a few feet away. She radiated a boundary he had never seen before. "Where have you been? We were terrified." "I was living," Eleanor said, for the first time. "Are you back?" Jake asked, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I didn't say happy birthday." "I'm sorry, too." Sarah was crying now. "The house is dead without you." Eleanor looked at them. She loved them, but she loved herself now, too. "I'm not back to be the maid," she said clearly. "I'm not back to be the furniture. If I stay, everything changes." The next day, she went to the office. She walked in wearing her yellow dress. The office fell silent. She walked straight to Mr. Henderson's office. "Eleanor, thank God." Mr. Henderson stood up. "Get to your desk. The backlog is—" "I'm not here to work, David." She used his first name. He blinked, stunned. "I'm here to resign." "You can't. You need this job." "No, you need me. And that's the difference." She placed her resignation letter on his desk. "And by the way," she looked at Jessica, who was cowering in the corner, "the Harrison files are in the cloud, password protected. The password is respect." She walked out. Mr. Henderson ran after her. "Wait, double salary. I'll double it." Eleanor laughed. It was a free musical sound. "Keep your money, David. Buy some new furniture." Eleanor didn't move back into the bedroom with Mark immediately. She slept in the guest room. "I need to see if you can be a partner, Mark, not a master." Mark tried. He really tried. He learned to cook. He did the laundry. He planned dates. He looked at her when she spoke. One evening, 3 months later, they were having dinner. Mark had made pasta. It was overcooked, but he made it. Was overcooked, but he made it. "I met someone today," Eleanor said. Mark froze. "What?" "I met the old Eleanor. I looked at a photo of her from a year ago. She looked so tired." Mark reached across the table and took her hand. "I promise I will never let you get that tired again." Eleanor didn't go back to corporate work. She opened a small pottery studio in the town center, using her savings. She called it the Kiln, because fire hardens clay, and pain hardens resolve. Eleanor taught her family a hard lesson that year. You never know the true weight of the roof until the pillars crumble. She learned that self-worth isn't given, it is claimed. She was no longer the invisible woman. She was the sun around which they revolved, not because she served them, but because she warmed them. And sometimes, to find yourself, you have to be willing to lose everyone else.